Well, President Obama surprised the country on Friday by unveiling a new immigration policy. Under the new plan, people younger than 30 who came to the U.S. before the age of 16 and posed no criminal or security threat and were successful students or served in the military can get a 2-year deferral from the deportation. It's another half step in the ongoing immigration debate in this country. The president said the new policy was, quote, not amnesty, not immunity, and not a path to citizenship. It's also not a permanent fix, Obama said. Still, the news was greeted with great excitement in some parts of the country and criticism from Republicans who called it unlawful and even unconstitutional. Here to talk about the new policy today are Missouri State Senator Scott Rupp. He's a Republican from Wentzville and a candidate for Secretary of State. Senator, nice to have you. Good morning.
Oh, great for having us on.
Myrna Orozco is also here. She's 22 and is an undocumented immigrant originally from Mexico. She'll be affected by this new policy. Myrna, good morning to you, too.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, how does this, the president's new policy affect you, Myrna?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I am undocumented, so the president's announcement affects me directly. I feel very happy and actually sort of secure for the first time in my life. I was very young when I came here, so I finally feel that I can breathe a little easier, and just am very, very excited for what's to come.
So it goes without saying then, Myrna, this was a very, very big deal for you.
It was. I've been working on this campaign for quite a while now. It's been 2 years in the making. So when we got the news, it was just a moment of sort of disbelief with everything going on currently in the country around immigration. It seemed very far away, and I was very excited and just shocked and taken aback and relieved when we heard of the announcement.
Senator Rupp, let's bring you into this conversation here. What do you make of the president's new policy?
Well, obviously, I was very disappointed in the policy. I wrote Missouri's illegal immigration laws back in 2008. And back then, it was one of those, we didn't see any action from the federal government, and we were having issues where we had people using state tax credits to build low-income housing apartment complexes and then turning around and using illegal labor. So we had to step up as a state and try to figure out how to deal with this issue of illegal immigration because the federal government wasn't. And what President Obama just did is he just undid everything that we have done back since 2008 and pretty much just threw it right out the window, and it's actually been working very well. Do
you think, obviously, then, Senator, he overstepped his boundaries, at least in your view?
I do think he overstepped his boundary. I think, he probably wouldn't get overturned in a constitutional court because, it could say it's temporary. It could say it falls underneath the enforcement of laws. It falls under the executive power. But I do think that this was, something that he did just completely go around the legislature because he didn't like, what he couldn't get done. I think it was, why are you doing it now is the most important question. You can make the political argument trying to appeal to a block of voters, but also with, especially in the building trades with, 30% unemployment in some of those trades, basically what now can happen is what we stopped happening in 2008 from developers, submitting in bids that were 60% lower using illegal labor and then winning the bid. They just made that legal now, and that's going to have a huge effect especially on the building trade.
Well, let's go with that line of thinking, Senator, just for a moment. How should the state respond then, in your view?
Well, I think what the state should respond is we should still continue to, have the laws we have on the books that have been working very well, that holds those that are hiring illegals, knowingly hiring illegals accountable. We can revoke their business license. We put the power in the Secretary of State's office to do that. We also put a little bit of an emphasis on if local communities were allowing this to happen, we could we could deem them a sanctuary city and they could lose some benefits, from the state government and stuff. So again, I think we just have to keep what we passed back in 2008 and just keep on moving because this is only a temporary thing. It's an executive order, and we'll just keep on enforcing the laws that we have on the books here in Missouri.
We're talking about President Obama's new immigration policy. Myrna, tell us how your friends reacted to this, and maybe tell me first, did you see this change in policy coming?
To answer the first question, some of my friends, like myself, that are affected directly by this policy are also happy and will benefit directly, and it's a big change in somebody's life. I kind of did see this change coming, and I don't see it as what others are saying. You know, it's really not an executive order. This is something that the Department of Homeland Security, under their jurisdiction and their power, was able to do to ensure that our nation's resources are spent appropriately and that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars, taxpayer money on incarcerating people who came here at a very young age, have no criminal record, and are American in every way but papers. So I think that it was a very smart move by the Department of Homeland Security, not an executive order, to use our nation's resources effectively to move the country forward. But
until now, how worried have you been about your own future in this country? How did that play out with you day after day?
Day after day, it's something that is always present. It's an ever-present feeling that you never know if you're going to go drop off your siblings at school and you're not going to come home. If you're going to be walking down the street and something might happen and you're not going to be able to see your family again. It's a feeling of uncertainty that I definitely wish on no one, right? Knowing that at any day, at any moment, everything that you call home, everything that you've ever known, will be destroyed, and you will be taken back to a country that, for me, don't know, don't remember, and can't really function in.
Given that uncertainty, Myrna, given that pressure constantly in your life, why did you opt to stay here as opposed to going to Mexico?
Why did I opt to stay here?
Yeah.
My whole family is here. I have citizen brothers and sisters, citizen grandparents, citizen family, and I have nowhere to go in Mexico. I can barely write the language. It's not really an option. You grow up here, and I really didn't even know I was undocumented until the time of trying to go to school after graduating at the top of my class came about, right? I didn't really know that was my situation. And for me, it didn't even seem a possibility. I can't fathom going to live to a country where I have no family, going to live to a country where I don't know the language properly, where I don't know the customs. I've grown up here. I've played sports here. I've gone to school here. I've debated here. I've done everything here. And to me, this is my country. This is my home. I feel every bit as American as everyone else, so I couldn't possibly fathom.
Yeah. Senator, respond to Myrna here just a little bit. Would you really send the Myrna Orozco's home to Mexico?
Well, I think you have to look at it. This is a temporary fix what President Obama just did.
That's right.
So what happens in 2 years? You know, back in the same situation, what we got to have is we need Washington to come up with a long-term, a sensible plan for illegal immigration. But first, you have to make sure you secure the borders, because if you don't do that, you know, that's kind of like finding someone that has an illness, not treating the core reason of it, but you know, coming up with a policy of after the fact, but they're still making themselves sick. I mean, you got to stop that so you don't have these situations arise. You have a long-term fix. You know, and in Missouri, what we focused on, you know, is we said, okay, how is this affecting Missouri? There are things that we can't deal with. We can't deal with some of the issues that she's talking about. Those are strictly federal. But especially now with huge unemployment, there's 800,000, according to some of the news reports, of new undocumented workers that are now be able to seek work. It's like, why now? I mean, that is the worst time to be doing a temporary fix. It's not going to solve anything after 2 years. It's going to give some false hope, maybe long-term hope to individuals, but, you know, why now? And so I think that's really the big thing that we're trying to focus on. But in Missouri, it's how do we as a state live under the laws that we have until the federal government comes on with a long-term solution.
But Senator Rupp, you know, is a very good chance that the federal government, Congress particularly, isn't going to resolve the immigration uncertainty for perhaps years to come. They have struggled, they've taken this up and struggled with it, and they've been unable to deal with it as a Congress and pass a new law for years and years. So what about that?
Well, I think that's why we did what we did here in Missouri,
right.
Is we came up and said, there is uncertainty. We don't know what they're going to do. They're not acting. They're not, securing the border. So we are seeing these problems here in Missouri. How do we deal with that? And what we just said, okay, you can come in and say we're violating federal law. That is fine. We don't care. We're still pushing forward, and we did as many of the possible things we could under the guise of the federal law, and then we just pushed ahead on others. And I think that's what you're going to see is states that are saying we have a problem. They're not dealing with it. They're going to look to Missouri and say, wow, it's been working great. Let's do what they did and move the ball forward. And again, I think the big picture from the national perspective is all this has done is spurred more state-by-state action, which you will have piecemeal and patchwork across the country until the federal government does a long-term solution.
Again, we're talking about President Obama's new immigration policy. Myrna, Senator Rupp just pointed out that this is a temporary fix. Do you look at it that way? Because you can get these 2 years extended a few times, if I understand the new policy correctly.
I actually agree with Senator Rupp. This is a temporary fix, and we definitely, in his own words, need a long-term, sensible solution to the broken immigration problem in the country. So, it is a temporary fix. It's definitely much better than the situation we were in, but I would have to completely agree. We do need a long-term, sensible solution for immigration reform in the country, so I would definitely agree.
Myrna, how hopeful are you that Congress eventually will pass something like the DREAM Act, which, of course, is aimed at helping the kids of illegal immigrants who live in this country? Are you holding your breath, or where do you come down on that?
Where do I come down? Well, I know that I'm not holding my breath, rather more acting towards all of that. It's time to really step up and show everyone the contributions. I actually don't agree with some of the things said earlier. I think that the why now is because we are a contribution to this country, right? According to the Congressional Budget Office, even the House version of the DREAM Act, which was kind of like what passed now, would help in reducing the deficit of the country for $2.2 billion, right? We have young people who are graduating from high school who are starting their own businesses. I myself was able to hire an American citizen about 2 months ago, and it's been going great. And I think that that's why now, because our country needs to move forward. We have a group of individuals that have grown up here, know our laws, know our system, that can contribute so much to the economy and to our society as a whole. So I think that's why now, so that we can move the country, we can move America forward.
Myrna, are you disappointed at all that the president didn't go even any further with this policy change? He could have done a lot more. I'm not
disappointed. He could have done a lot more, but he respected the boundaries. He didn't overstep and say, I'm going to give them what Congress could give them. He, worked with his administration. The Department of Homeland Security chose to do this, like I mentioned earlier, to use their resources effectively, and now it's time for Congress to act and do their job. So he didn't, I think in that sense he was very respectful of the way our system works and is waiting for Congress to act and to place a real solution to the broken immigration problems.
Senator, how much did election year politics play into this decision in your view?
No, I think it played huge. I mean, why didn't the president do this when he had the majorities in both the House and the Senate if he really wanted to push some type of legislation through? Now he's doing this for election year politics, and my big beef is that's what he's doing. We all see it, but with unemployment as high as it is, you're putting a whole bunch of people into the workforce that are here illegally that are going to be competing for the very scarce jobs that we have. So I think it definitely, when you look at this could have been done years ago or things of that nature when he had his majorities. It's definitely election year politics, and it's very sad that you have a president saying, well, I just don't agree with the laws. I can't get them passed through the Congress, so I'm just going to have people not enforce the laws that are on the books.
Right.
And that's just a sad state of our electorate process of how politics is in Washington has hit an all-time low. Because that's basically what has happened is I can't get what I want done, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway and question whether or not it's even a constitution.
Myrna, just very, very quickly, election year politics in your view or not?
No, I think that we needed the solution, and it was the right time and the right thing to do. So
right. Well, Mirna Orozco, thanks so much for taking some time. Appreciate it very much.
All right, thank you so much for.
And Missouri State Senator Scott Rupp. Scott, sure appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet.